get the facts and then consider your feelings and challenge your feelings. But your feelings might be right. Maybe you should go against what seemed to be the facts sometimes. That's why I think it's complicated. I don't think the facts over feelings thing is a simple equation. I think it is, it's more likely that you should consider your knowledge base on a given topic, be it, you know, a video games analysis, a political thing, anything. It doesn't really matter, just anything that you know about. Consider about it. How much do you actually know based on how assuredly you're speaking about it? Now, speaking of the DSP moments that we were talking about earlier, one of his biggest problems is that he sort of asserts that he cannot possibly be the problem anytime he's up. He's like, guys, no, this game is just not designed well, and just doesn't actually pay attention until his chat berates him with the obvious answer that he'll then be like, oh, okay, I didn't see that. Whatever, this game isn't well designed. And then he'll just like move on. Whereas there, I was like, okay, that was me being stupid because I was just not seeing the pants in the inventory. They were there. I just didn't select them at any point, or if I did, I didn't think it had anything to do with this quest because I remember wearing shepherd's clothes in another quest. I think your honesty about what you know is as important, no more important, than being honest about what you don't know while you're talking about anything. However, I do think it's really, in any kind of debate scenario, again, you could be talking about a game, where a person takes your admittance of ignorance, like when you say, I actually don't know about much about this aspect of it, and then they consider that just an automatic win for them. It's like, okay, well, then you don't even know anything about this. You don't know what you're talking about. It's like, well, based on my experience, though, here's what I'm thinking in regards to it. Considering the fact base that you have, which is all you're ever going to have, because it's like, well, you can go talk to other people. It's like, yes, then you will have a wider fact base. You will be able to understand more about the topic because other people have informed you about aspects that you might have been missing. However, I think that if, for example, Flawed on Side Scrollers today was talking about how he really likes Mortal Kombat 1, thinks the cameo system is really good, and he doesn't really care about the story at all, so he kind of didn't give a shit about the bad writing. Which, I mean, that aspect of it, I totally accept, because there's plenty of people who just buy Mortal Kombat to play online, not to play through a story mode. However, Mortal Kombat has not always had bad story modes, and I think their format for story mode in a fighting game is probably the best one for telling a story, like an actual story, using a fighting game to navigate through it. Tekken does a similar thing in Tekken 7, but it's really convoluted and has a lot of shots to like a journalist talking about his research of Heihachi and Kazuya. And it's like, okay, well, this is really not very well paced. Even if the story was probably more interesting than definitely what happened in Mortal Kombat 11. NetherRealms has a pretty decent way of portraying things much like they would be portrayed in an actual movie or television show. And they've got a format that works, where let's tell a chapter about this character, where it's them moving through this story and we're seeing their perspective. And then at the same time, there's something else happening in one of the other realms following one of the other characters. So you get a little story segment introing it, a little story segment giving you some conclusion on it before you move on to the next character. It's a good format, and I think that they should keep it. I do think they need to hire better writers, though, because the writing in Mortal Kombat 1 is unbelievably bad. I couldn't believe that it was getting as bad as it was at times, with one exception. Reptile's story is actually pretty good. You know, he's got some character there, but it's not really plot at all. It doesn't. The only thing it has to do with the plot is Reptile joins the good guys. The end. That's like that, and that's in one scene. So he's kind of working for the bad guys reluctantly. There's a fight. You never do you fight him? Maybe you do fight him once. Yeah, you're trying to escape. You fight him, and then he joins your team. Like that's the end of it. And every bit of his story from there on out, beyond okay, now he's using his invisibility to sneak through a crowd at this festival or whatever. Everything you learn about that, his story from there on out, is character stuff, where he talks about his family who were kidnapped and that he was being forced to work for the villains. I guess I won't reveal too much about the story. And his story actually has some stuff to it. Like, it's like, oh, okay, I think this reptile is a very sympathetic character, and it's interesting how they explain his reptile form and his human form and the way that impacts the character that he is. So it's like, look, there's some people with good ideas here doing some stuff, but the problem is they let that guy or girl or whatever, whoever it was, write that little segment and it was good, and then other people who have no writing talent at all wrote most of the rest of the game. Or it was all written by like one guy and it's taken on more than he can handle. You know, like it's hard to tell a story with like 20 characters interweaving with each other and make it all flow well. And I guess from a pacing standpoint, not terrible, but also you've got the kind of story where every couple of minutes you're having fighting game sequences that you play. So it's not really hard to keep a story like that moving along unless you do what Tekken 8 did, which just grinds everything to a halt. But and again, I still enjoyed not Tekken 8, Tekken 7. Tekken 8 is coming out later, and I will play it, and I will play the story mode and stream it, because fighting game story modes pretty quick. I get through those in like a couple days. And usually if they're formatted the way the Mortal Kombat games are, there's a lot of stuff that we can share together because we're mostly just watching a TV show together. This does have moments that are like that, but there's more time in Final Fantasy XIV where I'm just kind of going from point to point, getting the quest moving along. But I guess that's my little tangent about intellectual honesty in arguing. That eventually kind of became about Mortal Kombat again.